We often hear phrases like, God will provide or your blessing is on the way. But too often these statements are treated as motivational cliches rather than deeply rooted truths. The idea that God transfers wealth into the lives of his people is not new. It's woven throughout Scripture. From Abraham to Joseph, from Esther to Solomon, we see patterns emerge, patterns that reflect how God moves people from one season to another, from lack into abundance, from dependence into stewardship. When we speak of wealth, let us not reduce it to mere finances. Wealth in God's economy is multidimensional. Yes, it includes financial prosperity, but it also encompasses wisdom, influence, favor, opportunities, creativity, and even divine connections. In fact, wealth in the kingdom is not just about accumulation. It's about empowerment. It's about being resourced for purpose. It's about having more than enough so that we can become conduits for the will of God to be accomplished on the earth. And yet there's a problem. Many people are waiting for a transfer without recognizing it. They're praying for abundance, but missing the signs. They want increase, but don't understand that divine increase rarely comes in the way we expect. So today I want to walk with you through 3 clear, unmistakable signs that God is transferring wealth into your life. These signs are not abstract. They are tangible, spiritual indicators that your life is being positioned for more. The first sign is disruption. Yes, you heard me right, disruption. Most of us expect blessings to arrive quietly like a gentle breeze. We imagine a check in the mail, a surprise promotion, or a new business idea dropping from the heavens. And while God is certainly able to do all of that, more often than not, divine wealth transfer is preceded by disruption. The status quo must be shaken to make room for something greater. Consider the life of Joseph. He had a dream that he would be great, that his family would bow to him, but the road to that dream was anything but smooth. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly. It looked like his life was falling apart, but those very disruptions were positioning him for divine elevation. Had Joseph not been sold, he wouldn't have ended up in Egypt. Had he not been in Egypt, he wouldn't have been in the palace. And had he not been in the palace, he couldn't have become the steward of wealth for an entire nation. Disruption is often a sign that God is moving things in your favor. It doesn't feel good and it rarely looks holy, but behind the scenes, God is rearranging your environment to make room for the next level. That job you lost, that relationship that ended, that sudden change in direction, it may not be a setback, it might just be a setup. God is not in the business of comfort, he's in the business of purpose. And when purpose demands more, disruption becomes necessary. But here's the catch. How you respond to the disruption matters. If you curse it, resist it, or mourn it endlessly, you may miss the doorway it creates. But if you lean into it, if you trust God through it, if you listen closely and walk in faith even when you can't see the end, you'll find yourself in rooms you didn't know existed, having conversations you never imagined, and stewarding blessings you once only dreamed about. The second sign that God is transferring wealth into your life is uncommon favor. Favor is different from luck. Favor is divine. It's when doors open that shouldn't, when people say yes for no logical reason, when opportunities find you rather than you finding them. Favor is the currency of the kingdom. It's what positioned Esther in a palace, what gave Daniel influence with kings, and what brought Ruth into the field of Boaz. Uncommon favor often looks like acceleration. Things begin to happen faster than expected. Someone recommends you for something without you asking. You get noticed in a crowd. Your name is spoken in rooms you haven't entered yet. This isn't coincidence. It's divine orchestration. And when God begins to pour out favor on your life, it's not just for your benefit. It's a sign that he is transferring influence, opportunity, and yes, wealth into your hands for his purpose. But favor is also a test. How you handle it determines how long it will last. Favor should lead you to humility, not arrogance. It should push you toward greater obedience, not entitlement. Some people sabotage divine favor because they think it's about them. But favor isn't about being better than others. It's about being positioned for kingdom impact. So when favor finds you, honor it, steward it, give God the glory, and ask Him, what do you want me to do with this? Favor also often shows up in the form of people. Divine connections are a form of wealth transfer. The right person at the right time can change your life. One conversation can launch you into a new season. God often uses people as bridges to your next level. Don't despise the relationships in your life. Some of them may carry keys to doors you didn't even know existed. Be attentive, be grateful, and be discerning. Now let me speak to the third sign, which may be the most challenging and yet the most revealing, the stretching of your capacity. When God begins to transfer wealth into your life, He will stretch your ability to receive it. He will stretch your mindset, your faith, your discipline, and your willingness to obey difficult instructions. Why? Because He will never give you what you cannot handle. You see, we often pray for increase, but we forget that increase demands infrastructure. A larger blessing requires a stronger foundation. You want to manage millions, but can you manage hundreds? You want to impact nations, but can you lead your own life with integrity? The stretching of your capacity is not punishment, it's preparation. It's God expanding your ability to carry what He's about to place in your hands. This stretching may come through challenges that test your character. It may come through seasons that feel like silence. It may come through new responsibilities, new levels of accountability, or a call to higher levels of sacrifice. But make no mistake, if you're in a season where you feel like you're being stretched in every direction, chances are you're being prepared for a divine upgrade. The stretching also includes your ability to think differently. You cannot enter a new season with an old mindset. God will begin to expose you to new ways of thinking, new people, new environments. He'll challenge your limiting beliefs. He'll confront your fears. He'll push you out of your comfort zone, because wealth in God's hands is not just about money, it's about mindset. You must begin to think like a steward, not a struggler, like a builder, not a beggar. So when you find yourself uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and uncertain, don't panic. Ask God what He's trying to develop in you. Ask Him where He's taking you. And trust that the stretching is making you stronger, wiser, and more ready than ever before. I want to end this speech by reminding you that God does not waste movement. Every step, every season, every shift has meaning. If you've seen disruption, if you've experienced unusual favor, or if you're currently being stretched beyond what feels possible, don't resist it. These are the signs. These are the markers on the road to divine transfer. And as that transfer comes, don't forget your role in it. You are not merely a recipient of wealth, you are a steward, a conduit, a vessel through which the purposes of God can flow into your community, your family, your generation. Wealth is not the goal, impact is. And when God transfers wealth into your life, it is because He trusts you to use it for something greater than yourself. So lean into the disruption, celebrate the favor, embrace the stretching, because the transfer is not just coming, it's already in motion. And you, my friend, are being positioned for more than you ever imagined. When life takes an unexpected turn, when plans fall apart, when jobs are lost, relationships end, or doors close, it's natural to feel confused, frustrated, and even abandoned. But what if I told you that these very moments of disruption are not signs of failure or divine punishment, but rather signals of promotion in disguise? What if what feels like your world unraveling is actually God's way of moving you into a greater assignment, a deeper calling, and a new level of provision? Too often we equate blessing with comfort and assume that hardship must mean disfavor. But if we look at Scripture, the pattern is clear. Before elevation, there is often disruption. Before Joseph wore the robe of royalty in Egypt, he was stripped of his coat by his own brothers and thrown into a pit. Before Moses led Israel out of Egypt, he fled into the wilderness after killing a man. Before David sat on the throne, he was hunted by Saul and forced to live in caves. Disruption didn't disqualify them. It was the tool God used to prepare, position, and promote them. When God begins to transfer wealth into your life, whether financial, spiritual, relational, or influential, He will often begin by shaking your current situation. Why? Because many of us have grown comfortable in places that cannot sustain the blessing God wants to release. The job that once was provision becomes a prison. The relationship that once brought joy becomes a distraction. The environment that once supported growth now stifles it. In those moments, God doesn't just gently lead us out. He disrupts, He unsettles, He shakes foundation. Disruption forces us to let go of what we would never release on our own. It confronts our dependence on things, people, and systems that we've come to idolize. And in the process, it exposes what's really at the center of our trust. If we rely more on comfort than calling, we'll see disruption as punishment. But if we understand the nature of God, we'll begin to see it as divine preparation. One of the most powerful aspects of disruption is that it breaks routine. You begin to ask questions you never asked before. You start seeking God with new intensity. Your heart becomes open in ways it never was when things were easy. This is where transformation happens. Not in ease, but in uncertainty. Not in comfort, but in surrender. And while the process of disruption is rarely pleasant, it always has purpose. God does not allow shaking without the promise of stability on the other side. But it will be a different kind of stability, not one rooted in external circumstances, but one grounded in faith, vision, and divine alignment. When God disrupts, it's not because He's angry, it's because He's too loving to let you settle. Divine promotion always requires change. You cannot walk into a new season with the same mindset, the same habits, or the same limitations. Disruption forces growth. It forces you to level up. It pushes you into uncharted territory where your dependency on God becomes deeper and your capacity for leadership, stewardship, and blessing is expanded. If you're in a season where everything seems to be shaking, do not despair. Heaven may be reorganizing your life. What you think is falling apart may actually be falling into place. The loss of one opportunity may be the opening of something far greater. The relationship that ended may have been holding back your destiny. The plan that failed may have saved you from years of spiritual stagnation. God is not trying to break you, He's building you. And often He builds by tearing down what no longer fits the future He's prepared. So instead of resisting the disruption, lean into it. Ask God what He's doing, what He's shifting, and how He wants you to respond. Because if you can recognize the disruption for what it really is, not punishment, but positioning, you'll walk into your next season not confused, but confident that promotion is not just coming. It's already begun. There are moments in life when things happen that defy logic, moments when doors swing open without you even knocking, when opportunities land in your lap without any calculated effort, and when people go out of their way to help you for reasons they can't explain. These moments are not coincidences. They are manifestations of uncommon favor. While effort, diligence, and consistency are vital in life, there are some doors that effort alone cannot open. Doors that only the favor of God can unlock. Favor is a divine force. It's not something you earn, strive for, or manufacture through charm or connections. Favor is granted, not gained. It is God's way of putting His hand on your life and causing others to see you through His eyes. When God decides to place favor on you, people will be drawn to you, circumstances will align in your favor, and blessings will begin to chase you down. This is not to say that effort is meaningless. In fact, God honors diligence. But favor goes beyond the limitations of effort. You can work tirelessly and still remain unnoticed. You can have the credentials, the skill, and the experience, and yet find yourself locked out of rooms you're qualified to enter. But when favor is upon you, qualifications take a back seat to divine endorsement. Favor doesn't ignore preparation, it accelerates it. It doesn't bypass discipline, it builds on it. but it adds a supernatural element that no resume, no network, and no strategy can compete with. We see this truth throughout Scripture. Esther was a Jewish orphan living in exile with no social standing or political power, and yet, through a series of events that could only be orchestrated by God, she found herself standing before the king, chosen out of many, crowned as queen. Her rise wasn't about beauty alone, it was about favor. The Bible says she obtained favor in the sight of all who saw her. That kind of favor cannot be explained in human terms. It was divine positioning for a divine purpose. Daniel, too, found favor in a foreign land. Despite being a captive in Babylon, he rose to prominence and was entrusted with authority, insight, and influence. Why? Because God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the officials. Notice that favor came first, then influence followed. It wasn't Daniel manipulating his way into power. It was God's favor opening the door and Daniel's integrity keeping him in the room. Uncommon favor will make people advocate for you even when you're not present. It will cause your name to come up in meetings where decisions are made. It will lead strangers to support your vision, sow into your future, and recommend you for things you never applied for. It doesn't make sense in natural terms because favor originates in the spiritual realm. But here's what's important to understand. Favor is not random. It's purposeful. God doesn't give you favor just to make you feel special. He gives you favor to position you for impact. When God releases favor, it is because there's a divine assignment on your life that requires access, influence, and resources that you couldn't obtain on your own. Favor is not about personal gain. It's about kingdom advancement. It's God saying, I've chosen you for this. Now let me make a way. And yet, favor also comes with responsibility. It must be stewarded. It must be handled with humility and reverence. Favor is not a license to boast or to look down on others. It's a reminder that your success is not self-made. It is God-ordained. If you begin to take credit for what only God could do, you risk losing what He freely gave. But if you stay rooted in gratitude and obedience, favor will continue to follow you, opening more doors than your effort ever could. In some seasons, you may feel like your hard work is not producing the results you expected. Don't be discouraged. That may be the very moment when favor is about to be released. God often lets our efforts reach their limits so we can see His hand more clearly. When you've done all you can and doors still won't open, don't push harder. Pray deeper. Favor comes from alignment, not striving. Seek His will, and He will add what your work alone cannot produce. Uncommon favor doesn't mean you won't have to do the work. It means the work you do will be met with divine acceleration. It means you'll see more fruit than your labor should have produced. It means you'll walk through doors you never built. When you walk in favor, people may wonder how you got there. They may question why you were chosen. But you'll know it wasn't luck, it wasn't politics, it was God. Favor is not fair, but it is faithful. And when it finds you, nothing and no one can shut the door that God has opened. There's a profound truth in the way God prepares people for increase. Before the blessing arrives, the vessel must be stretched. While we often pray for more influence, more provision, more opportunity, what we sometimes overlook is that every increase requires greater capacity. And that capacity doesn't appear overnight. It is formed through stretching. It is built through challenge, pressure, responsibility, and sometimes discomfort. God is never interested in simply giving you something that will crush you under its weight. He loves you too much for that. His blessings are not burdens, but without proper preparation, even good things can become overwhelming. So, before God places a greater blessing in your hands, He stretches your ability to carry it. That stretching process might look like waiting. It might feel like testing. It might even feel like failure. But in the unseen realm, it's capacity building. It's God saying, I'm getting you ready. Think of it this way. If you asked a trainer to help you lift more weight, they wouldn't immediately put 200 pounds in your hands. They would increase the weight slowly, allowing your muscles, posture, and endurance to adapt. The goal isn't to crush you, it's to grow you. The same is true spiritually. When you ask God to bless you financially, relationally, or spiritually, He will often begin by increasing your responsibility, refining your discipline, and expanding your faith. He doesn't want you to just receive the blessing, He wants you to be able to sustain it. We see this pattern all throughout Scripture. David was anointed king as a young man, but he didn't walk into the palace the next day. He was sent back to the field, then to serve a king who would eventually try to kill him. For years, David was chased, hidden, isolated, and misunderstood. But during those years, he was being stretched. His faith was deepened, his leadership was sharpened, his dependence on God became unshakable. By the time David ascended to the throne, he wasn't just a man with a title, he was a man with the character to carry it. Joseph is another example. He had dreams of influence and power as a teenager, but before those dreams became reality, he endured betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and prison. All of it was stretching. It didn't make sense in the moment, but looking back, we see that each season shaped his ability to lead a nation with wisdom, compassion, and strategy. Had he skipped the stretching, he would not have been ready for the seat of power. Stretching also happens internally. God stretches your mindset before He stretches your influence. If you're thinking in small, limited, fearful ways, you cannot steward a big blessing. If you carry a poverty mindset, a lack of identity, or a spirit of comparison, no amount of wealth or opportunity will fix that. In fact, without inner transformation, external blessings can actually magnify internal issues. That's why God works inside of you before He works around you. He begins by shifting your thinking, increasing your faith, confronting your insecurities, and calling you to greater levels of obedience. This process of stretching is rarely comfortable. In fact, it often comes with tears, frustration, and silence. There will be times when you feel forgotten, overlooked, and pushed beyond your limits. But understand this, stretching is not punishment, it's preparation. It's God enlarging the container of your life so you can hold what He's about to pour into it. He is building endurance, resilience, and faith so that the weight of the blessing will not cause you to collapse, but empower you to thrive. Sometimes the stretching will come through tests, financial strain, relational tensions, seasons of obscurity. Other times it will come through opportunities that seem too big, responsibilities that feel overwhelming, or decisions that stretch your trust in God's voice. But in every case, the stretching is strategic. Nothing is wasted. Not one tear, not one moment of pressure is without purpose. God is building something in you that will outlast the blessing itself. When the blessing finally comes, and it will, you'll look back on the stretching and thank God for it. You'll realize that the very trials you resented were the tools that formed your foundation. You'll handle the increase with wisdom because you were tested in lack. You'll walk with humility because you were broken in private. You'll move with courage because your faith was formed in the fire. So if you feel stretched right now, don't resist it. Don't shrink back. Lean in. Ask God what He's forming in you. Trust that this season is not the end. It's the making of you, because stretching doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to prepare you. And when you're prepared, nothing can stop the blessing from being released. And nothing can take it from your hands once it arrives. Wealth is one of the most misunderstood subjects in both spiritual and practical life. Many people chase it, some idolize it, and others avoid talking about it altogether. But in the eyes of God, wealth has a very specific purpose. It is a tool, not a trophy. It was never meant to be a symbol of superiority or self-worth, nor was it given so we could boast, compete, or isolate ourselves from others. Wealth, when seen through a kingdom lens, is a divine resource entrusted to us for the fulfillment of purpose. When we see wealth as a trophy, we become focused on appearances. We start measuring success by what we own instead of who we are. We begin comparing our lives with others, using money, possessions, or achievements as metrics for value. But God never intended for wealth to define us. He intended it to empower us. A trophy sits on a shelf and does nothing but reflect light and collect dust. A tool, however, is active. It builds, repairs, and creates. That's how God wants us to use wealth, not as a decoration of pride, but as an instrument of impact. Throughout Scripture, we see that those whom God blessed with wealth were called to use it for more than themselves. Abraham was blessed to be a blessing to nations. Joseph managed the wealth of Egypt during famine to preserve lives. Solomon's wealth wasn't just a display of glory, it was meant to establish a kingdom of peace and wisdom. Even the early church in Acts redistributed resources to care for those in need. Every time God released wealth, it was accompanied by responsibility. This challenges a common misconception that having money automatically means you're successful in God's eyes. But the truth is, wealth without purpose is empty. It can create comfort but not fulfillment. It can buy attention but not respect. It can fund lifestyles but not legacies. When you treat wealth as a trophy, you hoard it, protect it, and fear losing it. But when you understand that it's a tool, you release it, invest it, and multiply it for the benefit of others and the glory of God. I say, the moment wealth becomes a trophy, it also becomes a trap. Pride can take root. Greed can grow. The fear of losing what you have can consume you. Jesus warned us not to store up treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal. That wasn't a call to live in poverty. It was a call to shift our priorities. He was reminding us that earthly wealth is temporary, but eternal impact lasts forever. Seeing wealth as a tool requires a different mindset, one of stewardship, not ownership. When you're a steward, you recognize that everything you have ultimately belongs to God. Your job, your bank account, your business, your investments, they are all resources that God has placed in your care. And just like any good steward, your role is not just to hold on to them, but to use them wisely and effectively. This doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy what God gives you. There's nothing wrong with living well, providing for your family, or experiencing abundance. But the difference lies in your posture. Are you holding wealth with open hands or clenched fists? Are you asking God how to use what you have, or are you trying to use it to elevate yourself? That distinction defines whether wealth becomes a blessing or a burden in your life. One of the most freeing things you can do is stop chasing wealth for recognition and start using it for mission. Wealth can feed the hungry, educate the next generation, plant churches, fund innovation, support the arts, provide homes, and transform communities. Wealth can open doors that were once shut, break cycles of poverty, and create opportunities where there were none, but only if it's seen as a tool in the hands of someone willing to use it for good. God is looking for people he can trust with wealth, people who won't let it change their identity or distort their purpose. When you prove that you can manage a little, he can entrust you with more. Not so you can sit back and display it, but so you can get to work building what he's called you to build. So if you desire wealth, make sure your heart is right first. Don't pursue it for applause or status. Pursue it so you can serve, give, build, and bless. Let wealth flow through you, not just to you. Because in the end, wealth is not the reward, it's the resource. It's not the destination, it's the equipment. And when used for its true purpose, it becomes one of the most powerful tools in the hands of someone led by God. When God begins to move you into a new season, especially a season involving provision, promotion, or purpose, he often does it through people and relationships. Divine transfers rarely happen in isolation. Instead, they're connected to individuals whom God places in your path to unlock something within you or around you. These people may come as mentors, supporters, connectors, or even challengers, but each one plays a role in advancing the assignment on your life. It's important to understand that God works through human vessels. All throughout Scripture, we see divine destiny being released through relational connections. David needed Samuel to anoint him, Jonathan to protect him, and later, mighty men to support him. Ruth needed Naomi to guide her and Boaz to redeem her. Esther needed Mordecai to help her understand her purpose and the king to position her in the palace. Joseph needed Pharaoh to release him from prison. In each of these stories, destiny was not activated in a vacuum. It was unlocked through relationship. This reveals a critical truth. If you want to discern when God is transferring wealth or positioning you for greater purpose, pay close attention to the people He brings into your life. Some relationships are assignments. Others are divine alignments. And some are strategic connections meant to open doors that your effort alone could never access. But divine relationships require discernment. Not everyone who enters your life is sent by God, and not every open door is a blessing. That's why it's essential to stay prayerful and spiritually sensitive. The right person at the wrong time can be a distraction. The wrong person at the right time can be a delay. But the right person at God's appointed time can release something into your life that changes everything. Often the people God sends won't look like what you expect. They may come in humble packaging. They may not speak the language of your comfort zone, but they carry something valuable: wisdom, opportunity, resources, or favor. One conversation can shift your mindset. One introduction can expand your network. One act of kindness can spark a breakthrough. That's why relationships should never be taken lightly. Every person carries potential. Every connection carries possibility. On the other side of that truth is your own role. Sometimes you are the vessel God wants to use for someone else's transfer. You might be carrying the encouragement, opportunity, or connection that will unlock another person's destiny. When you make yourself available for God's purposes, He doesn't just send people into your life, He sends you into theirs. He uses relationships to move His will forward in every direction. This is why integrity in relationships matters so deeply. How you treat people in quiet seasons will often determine how you're treated in seasons of promotion. You never know who's watching, listening, or remembering. The person you helped years ago might become the person who recommends you tomorrow. The person you mentored when no one was looking might become the bridge to your next level. Favor flows through people. And those people are often watching your faithfulness long before your moment of elevation comes. If you're asking God for increase, also ask Him for divine connections. Ask Him to highlight the relationships in your life that carry purpose. Some will be short-term, others lifelong. Some will challenge you while others will comfort you. But each one will be part of the divine puzzle that God is putting together for your growth. Never underestimate the power of who God places in your life. The transfer may not come as a check in the mail or a sudden windfall. It may come as a person, a relationship, a conversation. And if you're open, humble, and discerning, you'll see that God has already started the process of promotion, not just through what He's given you, but through who He's sending to walk with you. Recognizing the signs that God is transferring wealth, favor, or new opportunities into your life is not always easy. In fact, without spiritual maturity, it's possible to misread what God is doing entirely. What looks like loss might actually be positioning. What feels like delay could be preparation. What seems like rejection may in reality be redirection. Spiritual maturity is what enables you to see beyond the surface, to perceive the hand of God, even when His work is not obvious. Spiritual maturity is not just about how long you've been walking with God, it's about how deeply you trust Him. It's the ability to interpret life through the lens of faith rather than emotion. It's the capacity to respond to difficulty with discernment instead of panic. And when it comes to recognizing divine signs, this maturity becomes absolutely essential. Often, God's signs don't look like blessings at first glance. They come wrapped in challenge, hidden in discomfort, or disguised as something ordinary. Without maturity, we'll pray for increase and then complain when the stretching begins. We'll ask for purpose and then resist the pressure that refines our character. We'll desire divine connections but dismiss people who don't fit our expectations. Immaturity wants the outcome without the process, but maturity understands that God works through process to prepare us for the promise. Maturity teaches us to slow down and seek understanding. It invites us to ask God, "What are you doing in this?" instead of immediately assuming something has gone wrong. It helps us pause and reflect when circumstances shift suddenly. Instead of reacting with fear or frustration, maturity causes us to lean into prayer and discernment. It keeps us from calling a test a curse or labeling a closed door as failure when it might be protection. There are times when God will give you signs, but He won't explain everything. He may lead you step by step without revealing the full picture. This requires a mature heart that doesn't demand constant reassurance, but walks by faith and not by sight. Spiritual maturity allows you to remain grounded even when clarity is missing. It keeps your spirit anchored when your circumstances are uncertain. This level of discernment also helps you recognize timing. Just because a door is open doesn't mean it's the right time to walk through it. Just because an opportunity is attractive doesn't mean it's from God. Mature believers don't move impulsively. They wait, they test, and they listen. They know that peace is often the loudest indicator of God's presence, and they refuse to be rushed by pressure or manipulated by appearances. Maturity allows you to celebrate others even while you're still in the waiting room. It resists jealousy and comparison. When you see someone else walking into their season of favor, a mature spirit rejoices rather than resents. It understands that what God does for one, He can do for another. Recognizing the signs in someone else's life can also strengthen your faith for what's coming in your own. Spiritual maturity is what aligns your heart with God's. It positions you to not only receive His blessing, but to recognize it, value it, and steward it well. It helps you avoid self-sabotage, keeps your motives pure, and ensures that your pursuit of wealth, favor, or influence is rooted in kingdom purpose, not personal ambition. Or when God begins to move, when He starts shifting things, closing some doors, opening others, or sending people into your life, you won't miss it. You'll be tuned in. You'll sense the shift in your spirit even before it becomes visible. That's the power of maturity.
When you learn to control your thoughts, you gain the master key to controlling your life. You see, there exists within you a power greater than any obstacle the world can place in your path. It is your ability to remain calm when everything around you is in chaos. The most successful individuals throughout history understood this profound truth. Thomas Edison, who faced over 10,000 failures before creating the electric light bulb, when his laboratory burned to the ground, destroying years of research and irreplaceable notes, what did he do? At age 67, watching his life's work go up in flames, he simply turned to his son and said, "Go get your mother. She'll never see anything like this again." The next morning, surveying the ruins, he declared, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." This is the power you possess right now, the ability to face any disaster with a calm mind. When you maintain your mental equilibrium, you see opportunities where others see only problems. Your mind becomes a sanctuary of clarity rather than a prison of panic. Remember, you are where you are because of your mental attitudes. Your circumstances do not determine your state of mind. Your state of mind determines your circumstances. This is the first principle you must embrace to develop unshakable calm in any situation. It develops controlled attention. When faced with overwhelming circumstances, you need a definite method to regain your composure quickly. I call this the principle of controlled attention, and it works because it redirects your mental focus from destructive to constructive thought. The moment you feel tension rising, stop whatever you're doing and implement this principle. First, recognize that your thoughts control your emotions, not the external circumstances. Take several deep breaths to break the pattern of negative thinking that leads to emotional disturbance. Second, ask yourself this pivotal question: what is the one constructive action within my power at this moment? This shifts your focus from the swirling chaos to your circle of influence. President Calvin Coolidge was renowned for his unflappable demeanor during crises that would have rattled most leaders. When asked about his extraordinary composure, he replied, "If you see 10 troubles coming down the road, you can be sure that 9 will run into the ditch before they reach you." He understood that most of what we worry about never materializes. The final step of applying this principle is to take one decisive action, no matter how small. When Andrew Carnegie faced potential financial ruin during the Panic of 1873, he didn't waste energy on worry. Instead, he focused on the single next step he could take. This principle of immediate action dissolves anxiety because it moves you from passive victim to active participant in your circumstances. Remember, your mind cannot simultaneously hold focused action and fearful thoughts. Choose action, and calm will follow naturally. 3. It helps in building your emotional fortress. Your emotional state is not at the mercy of external events. It is a fortress you build day by day, thought by thought. Just as a physical fortress isn't constructed in a moment of crisis but built methodically in times of peace, your emotional resilience must be developed through daily practice. You must understand that emotional mastery isn't about suppressing feelings but about choosing which emotions you will entertain and which you will dismiss. Helen Keller, who despite being deaf and blind from early childhood, developed such emotional fortitude that she graduated from college with honors and became an internationally recognized author and speaker. When asked about her remarkable achievements in the face of overwhelming obstacles, she said, "I long to accomplish great and noble tasks, but it is my chief duty to accomplish humble tasks as though they were great and noble." Her emotional fortress wasn't built in a single day, but through countless small choices to focus on possibility rather than limitation. You can begin building your emotional fortress today by establishing what I call a mental diet. Just as you would carefully select the food you put into your physical body, you must be vigilant about the thoughts you allow into your mind. Feed your mind stories of triumph over adversity, ideas that expand your sense of what's possible, and perspectives that emphasize solutions rather than problems. When you consistently practice this mental diet, you develop an inner stability that remains unshaken even when your outer world is in turmoil. The construction of your emotional fortress begins with the foundation stones of definite purpose. Every great achiever throughout history has possessed a burning desire that served as an anchor during turbulent times. What is your definite purpose? What goal or mission is so compelling that it can guide your thoughts when circumstances attempt to throw you off course? Without this foundation, your emotional fortress will crumble at the first sign of adversity. The walls of your fortress are built through the habit of controlled thought. This is not an ability you're born with, it is a skill you must practice daily. Begin each morning by determining your emotional intent for the day. Will you allow random circumstances to dictate your mental state, or will you consciously choose the thoughts that serve your highest good? This deliberate approach to your mental life builds emotional resilience over time, just as daily physical exercise builds physical strength. The windows of your fortress, your perspective on the world, must be kept clean and clear. Through what lens do you view your experiences? The great industrialist Charles M. Schwab maintained his composure during financial panics by asking himself, what opportunity lies hidden in this difficulty? This perspective allowed him to see possibilities where others saw only problems. Your own perspective is entirely within your control, regardless of external conditions. The gate of your fortress, what you allow to enter your mind, must be guarded with vigilance. The newspapers, books, conversations, and associations you choose will either strengthen or weaken your emotional state. Thomas Jefferson understood this principle when he wrote, "Nothing can now be believed which is seen in a newspaper." He chose carefully what information he would allow to influence his thinking. You must do the same, especially in moments when your emotional balance is threatened. Within the courtyard of your fortress lies the garden of gratitude. No emotion can survive in the presence of genuine thankfulness. Even in your darkest hour, there remains something for which you can be grateful. When Andrew Carnegie faced potential ruin, he focused not on what he stood to lose, but on what he still possessed: his knowledge, his relationships, and his capacity to begin again. This practice of gratitude becomes a cornerstone of emotional stability. The watchtower of your fortress provides vigilance against destructive thinking. From this vantage point, you must learn to recognize negative thought patterns before they take root. The moment you detect thoughts of worry, fear, or resentment, redirect your mental energy toward constructive alternatives. This is not mere positive thinking, it is strategic deployment of your most valuable resource, your attention. Remember that your emotional fortress is not built for isolation, but for strength. Its purpose is not to shut out the world, but to allow you to engage with life's challenges from a position of inner security. The true measure of your emotional mastery is not the absence of difficulties, but your capacity to remain calm and effective in their presence. Begin today to build your fortress, stone by stone, thought by thought, and you will develop a strength of character that no external circumstance can disturb. 4. It develops emotional support. The path to remarkable achievement and emotional equilibrium cannot be walked alone. Establishing a mastermind alliance, a collaborative circle of supportive individuals, serves as a foundation for personal development and maintaining composure during challenging periods. This strategy has been employed by countless successful figures throughout history, consisting of harmonious partnerships focused on attaining specific objectives, particularly building unwavering mental fortitude. Henry Ford, who, despite limited academic credentials, cultivated relationships with exceptional thinkers who enhanced his vision and helped preserve his determination through numerous obstacles. When automotive industry peers ridiculed his Model T concept, this network of encouraging minds helped sustain his resolve. Similarly, your resilience will strengthen dramatically when you thoughtfully select companions who contribute balance, insight, and fortitude to your journey. To establish your emotional support mastermind, begin by identifying at least 3 people who exemplify the mental discipline you wish to cultivate. Connect with them purposefully, requesting regular interaction aimed at collective growth. Practice transparency regarding both struggles and triumphs. Authentic connections forge stronger emotional capabilities, as meaningful relationships provide the environment where personal transformation flourishes. No significant historical accomplishment has emerged from complete isolation, and your quest for unshakable tranquility follows this same principle. The right alliance multiplies individual potential through shared wisdom, constructive feedback, and mutual encouragement. Members of your mastermind should possess diverse perspectives yet share fundamental values aligned with your aspirations. Seek those who demonstrate honesty without harsh judgment, offering careful insights when needed while celebrating progress. These relationships create safe spaces for vulnerability, allowing genuine exploration of challenges that might otherwise remain unaddressed. Regular meetings establish accountability and momentum. Whether weekly discussions, monthly reviews, or quarterly intensive sessions, consistency matters more than frequency. Structure these gatherings around specific topics, personal updates, and collaborative problem solving. This disciplined approach transforms casual friendships into purposeful growth partnerships. The most effective masterminds operate on principles of reciprocity. Each participant both contributes and receives value. As you share difficulties and breakthroughs, others gain perspective from your experiences. This exchange creates bonds strengthened through mutual investment in collective advancement. During particularly turbulent phases, your alliance provides crucial stability. They offer objective assessment when emotions cloud judgment, remind you of past triumphs when doubt emerges, and maintain unwavering belief in your capabilities when self-confidence wavers. Successful mastermind relationships evolve organically over time. Initial connections might focus on professional development before deepening into more comprehensive support systems addressing various life dimensions. Allow this natural progression rather than forcing immediate intimacy. Technology now enables global masterminds unrestricted by geography. Virtual meetings connect complementary minds across continents, expanding potential membership beyond local networks. However, regardless of format, the essential foundation remains trust, commitment, and shared purpose. The journey toward emotional mastery parallels any worthwhile endeavor, requiring deliberate practice, supportive community, and persistent effort. Your carefully cultivated alliance becomes both catalyst and companion throughout this process, accelerating progress while providing necessary encouragement during inevitable setbacks. Begin today by listing potential mastermind candidates. Then initiate conversations about forming these intentional connections. The resulting partnerships may become among your most valuable assets in developing unshakable emotional equilibrium and achieving extraordinary success. It transforms your self-talk and reality. The most important conversations you have are not with others but with yourself. Your internal dialogue shapes your perception of reality more powerfully than any external voice. When faced with challenging circumstances, what do you say to yourself? Do you reinforce fear and doubt, or do you speak words of courage and possibility? This is not mere positive thinking. It is the strategic deployment of your most powerful mental resource. The quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by how you interpret what happened. I have studied the minds of over 500 of the most successful individuals, and I can attest that their greatest accomplishment was mastering the conversation within. The thoughts you habitually entertain create the pathways through which all your future thoughts must travel. Theodore Roosevelt, who transformed himself from a sickly, asthmatic child into one of the most vigorous and resilient leaders in American history. How? By consciously reshaping his internal narrative. I am the captain of my soul, he would declare, even when his physical body seemed to contradict this assertion. His mind led and his circumstances followed. Your self-talk creates self-fulfilling prophecies. When you tell yourself this is overwhelming, your mind obediently produces overwhelming emotions. But when you declare, I have overcome challenges before and I will master this one as well, your mind begins generating solutions rather than stress. This principle operates with mathematical certainty. The subconscious mind accepts whatever the conscious mind repeatedly suggests. It makes no distinction between constructive and destructive thought impulses. It works day and night to bring into reality that which you most persistently think about. Herein lies both danger and opportunity. Begin today by auditing your habitual phrases. What do you say to yourself when plans go awry? Create replacement statements that acknowledge reality while emphasizing your capacity to respond effectively. Instead of "I can't handle this," try "This is difficult, but I'm taking it one step at a time." Instead of "Everything is falling apart," say "I'm being challenged to find a new approach. I have observed that failure comes not from lack of ability, but from destructive mental habits that undermine potential. The mind that habitually dwells on limitation finds itself imprisoned by those very thoughts. Conversely, the mind that focuses on solutions will inevitably discover them. Your words become your reality because they direct your focus, and your focus determines your emotional state. Master your self-talk, and you master your capacity to remain calm, regardless of circumstances. This emotional control is the hallmark of leadership and personal power. Remember that your subconscious takes your words literally. When you say "I am tired," you become more tired. When you say "I am energized by this challenge," your body responds accordingly. Choose your words with the same care a pharmacist uses when filling prescriptions, for they have similar potency. The greatest discovery of my research is this: you can alter the course of your life by altering your habitual thoughts and speech pattern. This power is immediately available to you, requiring no external permission or resources. It is the one true democracy. Every mind has equal opportunity to create its dominant thoughts. Begin this practice today and observe the transformation. Your circumstances may not change immediately, but your experience of them will shift dramatically. In time, even the most stubborn external conditions must reshape themselves to match your persistent internal dialogue. Master your thoughts, master your words, and you master your destiny. It develops your deliberate response method. Between stimulus and response lies a space. In that space is your power to choose your reaction. In your choice lies your growth and freedom. While most people react automatically to challenging situations, allowing their primitive brain to hijack their higher faculties, you can train yourself to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. This distinction between reaction and response marks the difference between those who are controlled by circumstances and those who maintain their composure regardless of external conditions. Abraham Lincoln, who was known for writing hot letters when provoked by incompetence or betrayal, he would express his anger fully in writing and then put the letter in a drawer, never to be sent. When asked about this curious habit, he explained that the process allowed him to discharge the emotional energy without creating consequences he would later regret. Mr. Lincoln intuitively understood the principle of the deliberate response method: acknowledge your initial emotional reaction privately, but choose your public response carefully. Our brains are wired for quick reactions, a survival mechanism from our evolutionary past. When faced with a threat, the amygdala triggers our fight or flight response before our rational prefrontal cortex can fully process the situation. This biological reality explains why we often react in ways we later regret. The good news is that we can rewire these patterns through conscious practice. The space between stimulus and response isn't fixed. It can be expanded. Each time you pause before reacting, you strengthen neural pathways that support thoughtful responses over impulsive reactions. This practice creates a virtuous cycle. More pause leads to better responses, which leads to better outcomes, which reinforces the value of pausing. You can implement the deliberate response method today by adopting a simple practice. When faced with a triggering situation, silently count to 10 before speaking or taking action. During those 10 seconds, ask yourself, will my natural reaction serve my highest goals? If not, choose a response that aligns with the person you aspire to be rather than the emotion you happen to feel in the moment. The benefits of mastering this skill extend far beyond avoiding regrettable outbursts. Research shows that people with greater emotional regulation enjoy better relationships, lower stress levels, improved decision-making, and even longer lives. By creating space between stimulus and response, you're literally rewiring your brain for greater well-being. In professional settings, this practice becomes particularly valuable. Leaders who respond rather than react inspire trust and confidence. They make decisions based on principles rather than pressures. They model emotional intelligence that others naturally want to emulate. Of course, implementing this practice isn't always easy. In moments of intense emotion, remembering to pause can feel impossible. Start by practicing in low-stakes situations. Notice minor irritations throughout your day and use them as opportunities to practice pausing. Over time, your capacity will grow. The paradox of the deliberate response method is that by slowing down your initial reaction, you actually speed up your progress toward your most important goals. Each thoughtful response builds momentum toward becoming the person you aspire to be. With consistent practice, the gap between stimulus and response will widen, giving you greater freedom to choose calm over chaos in any situation. This growing space becomes your sanctuary of freedom, a place where you reclaim your power from circumstances and exercise your uniquely human capacity for choice. Remember, between stimulus and response lies a space. Master that space, and you master yourself. 7. It develops mental calm. Your mind and body are not separate entities, but parts of an integrated system. The state of your physical body directly impacts your capacity for mental calm. This principle is often overlooked by those seeking emotional mastery, yet it provides one of the most direct pathways to an unshakable mind. When your body is functioning optimally, your threshold for stress increases dramatically, allowing you to maintain composure under pressures that would overwhelm others. John D. Rockefeller, despite building one of the largest fortunes in history and facing intense public scrutiny, lived to the age of 97, largely because he prioritized physical habits that supported mental calm. At the height of his career, when stress threatened his health, he revolutionized his daily routine. He began taking afternoon naps, spending time outdoors daily, and engaging in light physical activity regardless of his demanding schedule. These practices restored not only his health but his mental equilibrium. This connection between physical well-being and mental resilience isn't merely anecdotal. Modern neuroscience confirms that our physiological state creates the foundation upon which our psychological experience rests. A body in distress, whether from exhaustion, inflammation, or nutritional deficiencies, triggers cascades of stress hormones that make calm thinking nearly impossible, regardless of mental discipline. Consider the business executive who prides herself on mental toughness yet subsists on 4 hours of sleep and caffeine. Her perception of resilience is illusion. She's operating at a fraction of her potential while experiencing stress responses far more intense than necessary. Meanwhile, her colleague who prioritizes 8 hours of sleep approaches identical challenges with genuine equanimity, making clearer decisions with less internal turmoil. You can establish your own physical foundation for mental calm by implementing 3 non-negotiable daily practices. First, secure 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, as sleep deprivation dramatically lowers your stress threshold. Second, engage in at least 30 minutes of physical movement that elevates your heart rate, releasing tension from your body and endorphins in your brain. Third, be strategic about your nutrition, minimizing stimulants and processed foods that create internal chaos. When you honor these physical fundamentals, you'll be amazed at how much more mental pressure you can handle with grace and clarity. These practices aren't luxuries, they're prerequisites for those who face significant demands yet wish to maintain inner peace. The ancient Stoics understood this principle, with Epictetus noting that one cannot separate the health of the body from the tranquility of the mind. In modern context, we might call this stress-proofing your nervous system. The beauty of this approach lies in its accessibility. While advanced meditation techniques might take years to master, anyone can improve sleep hygiene tonight. Anyone can take a brisk walk tomorrow morning. These simple physical interventions yield immediate benefits for mental state. Those who implement these foundations often report not just greater calm but enhanced mental performance across all domains. Thoughts become clearer, emotional reactions less volatile, and creative insights more accessible. The noise floor of unnecessary internal distress lowers, allowing subtle mental signals to emerge. As you build this physical foundation for mental mastery, maintain perspective about temporary setbacks. One night of poor sleep or a missed workout doesn't negate your progress. The goal isn't perfection, but a sustainable commitment to bodily practices that support your highest mental functioning. Remember, Rockefeller, even with world-changing responsibilities, he recognized that time invested in physical wellness wasn't time away from his work. It was an investment in his capacity to handle that work with exceptional clarity and stamina. In following his example, you build not just a calmer mind today, but resilience that can sustain you through life's inevitable challenges. 8. It develops perspective. Your perception of events determines their impact on your emotional state far more than the events themselves. 2 people can experience identical circumstances, yet respond entirely differently based on their perspective. This principle gives you tremendous power, the ability to reframe any situation in a way that supports your mental calm rather than undermines it. It is not about denying reality, but about choosing which aspects of reality you will emphasize. Charles M. Schwab, who rose from day laborer to president of United States Steel Corporation and became one of America's wealthiest men, during the financial panics that destroyed many businesses, Schwab maintained remarkable composure. When asked about his ability to stay calm amid chaos, he explained, "I have observed that those who achieve lasting success do so not by railing against unfortunate circumstances, but by finding the favorable aspects of those circumstances." His perspective transformed potential disaster into opportunity. This wisdom echoes through the ages and across disciplines. The most successful individuals throughout history have understood that the mind can transform any circumstance through the power of interpretation. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit, as one great thinker observed. This principle reveals that opportunity often wears the disguise of temporary defeat. Those who develop the habit of looking past the obstacle to find this hidden opportunity maintain their emotional equilibrium while others succumb to despair. The wealthiest and most accomplished individuals share this remarkable ability to transmute negative experiences into stepping stones toward their goals. They understand that failure is never final unless you accept it as such. This perspective turns setbacks into valuable feedback rather than emotional catastrophes. You can harness the power of perspective through a simple but powerful question. In 5 years, what will matter most about how I handle this situation? This temporal distance immediately reduces the emotional intensity of the moment and highlights what truly deserves your mental energy. Another perspective-shifting question is what opportunity might be disguised in this difficulty? Remember, your eyes can only see what your mind is prepared to comprehend. Train your mind to look for opportunity in adversity, and you will find your emotional equilibrium remains stable even in turbulent circumstances. This reframing ability becomes particularly crucial during personal or professional setbacks. The most successful individuals maintain unwavering faith in their ability to achieve their aims, regardless of temporary defeat. They understand that persistence is futile without the proper perspective. One must persist intelligently, learning and adapting, rather than merely repeating failed approaches. The skill of perspective shifting can be developed through daily practice. Begin by monitoring your thoughts carefully, recognizing that negative emotions stem from interpretations rather than circumstances themselves. When facing challenges, consciously replace destructive thoughts with constructive alternatives. This mental discipline gradually becomes habitual, creating an automatic tendency toward advantageous perspectives. Remember that true emotional mastery comes not from controlling external events, but from controlling your reactions to them. The person who has developed this skill possesses a form of freedom unavailable to those whose emotions are dictated by circumstances. As you master perspective, challenges that once seemed overwhelming become opportunities to demonstrate your mental strength and strategic vision. With consistent practice, you'll discover that your capacity for maintaining calm amid chaos grows steadily. Situations that once triggered stress now trigger curiosity and creative problem solving. This transformation represents one of life's most valuable achievements, the ability to maintain your mental composure regardless of external conditions. The strategic use of visualization. Your mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual one. This principle gives you an extraordinary tool for developing mental calm. Through strategic visualization, you essentially pre-experience challenging situations and program your desired response. This mental rehearsal creates neural pathways that your brain will naturally follow when the real situation arises, allowing you to access calm states automatically. Bobby Jones, the legendary golfer who dominated the sport in the 1920s, attributed much of his success under pressure to visualization. Before every shot, he would play a mental movie of the ball's perfect trajectory and landing. "I never hit a shot," he said, "not even in practice, without having a very sharp in-focus picture of it in my head." This same technique can be applied to any situation where you wish to maintain your composure. The science behind this phenomenon is compelling. Neurologically, visualization activates many of the same brain regions as physical experience. When you vividly imagine performing an action, your brain fires similar neural patterns as when you actually perform it. Athletes have leveraged this understanding for decades, with studies showing that mental practice can significantly improve physical performance. The applications extend far beyond sports. Consider public speaking, through regular visualization, you can train your nervous system to associate speaking opportunities with confidence rather than anxiety. By repeatedly imagining yourself delivering a powerful presentation, feeling grounded, hearing your steady voice, seeing the engaged audience, you create a mental blueprint that your brain follows when the real moment arrives. What makes strategic visualization particularly powerful is its accessibility. Unlike many techniques that require special circumstances or equipment, this practice can be done anywhere, anytime. A few minutes of focused mental rehearsal during your morning routine or before bed can yield remarkable results. The key to effective visualization lies in sensory richness. Don't simply think about the situation, experience it. Incorporate all your senses. What do you see? What sounds are present? What physical sensations accompany your state of calm? The more detailed and immersive your visualization, the more effectively it programs your nervous system. Emotional engagement is equally crucial. As you visualize, genuinely feel the emotional state you want to embody. If you're practicing maintaining calm during a difficult conversation, truly experience that sense of centeredness, the steady rhythm of your breathing, and the clarity of your thoughts. Your brain doesn't just record the imagined scenario, it registers the associated emotional state. Begin implementing strategic visualization by identifying 3 challenging scenarios you commonly face. Perhaps it's a difficult conversation with a specific person, a high-pressure work situation, or a circumstance that typically triggers anxiety. Spend 5 minutes each day visualizing yourself moving through these scenarios with complete calm and clarity. See the details vividly, the environment, the other people involved, the words exchanged. Most importantly, feel the emotional state of composure you want to maintain. With consistent practice, you'll find that when similar situations arise in real life, your mind and body naturally remember the calm state you've mentally rehearsed. Consistency matters more than duration. 5 minutes of focused visualization daily will yield better results than an hour once a week. Consider integrating this practice into existing routines, perhaps immediately after meditation or just before sleep when your mind is naturally receptive. As you develop this skill, you'll discover that strategic visualization becomes more than a technique. It becomes a fundamental approach to life's challenges, transforming potentially stressful situations into opportunities to experience your highest level of functioning. In the crucible of crisis, true character emerges. The way you handle yourself when challenges arise not only determines your immediate outcomes, but shapes your enduring legacy. When chaos swirls around you, your ability to maintain mental clarity and emotional stability marks you as a leader worth following, regardless of formal titles or positions. Florence Nightingale during the Crimean War. While others recoiled from the horrific conditions in military hospitals, Florence Nightingale approached the situation with methodical calm. She implemented basic sanitation practices amid squalor and suffering, dramatically reducing mortality rate. Her composed presence became a beacon of hope and direction. Soldiers, doctors, and nurses alike found themselves naturally following her lead, not because of any official authority, but because her composure inspired confidence when fear threatened to overwhelm. This pattern repeats throughout history and in everyday life. Those who maintain their center during difficulty naturally draw others to them. In families, workplaces, and communities, composed individuals become informal leaders, their steady presence creating islands of calm in turbulent waters. Your own composure creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond any immediate situation. When you respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally to challenges, you establish an atmosphere that allows clearer thinking and better decision. Others sense this shift and unconsciously align with your energy. Your calm becomes contagious. Children especially absorb these lessons deep. They learn not from lectures about handling stress, but from watching how you respond when plans collapse, when finances tighten, or when conflict arises. Your example writes itself into their emotional blueprint, shaping how they'll handle their own future challenge. Colleagues and friends similarly draw strength from your steady presence. Intense meetings, difficult conversations, or moments of organizational uncertainty, your composure offers an alternative to anxiety and reactivity. You demonstrate that another way is possible. This capacity for composure isn't innate, it's cultivated through consistent practice. Each difficult moment offers an opportunity to strengthen this muscle. When you feel yourself being pulled into reaction, the simple act of pausing and breathing consciously can reset your nervous system. Regular practices like meditation, reflection, or physical disciplines build your capacity to remain centered when it matters most. The development of unshakable calm represents one of life's most valuable achievements. It transforms not only your external results, but your internal experience. Challenges that once would have derailed you for days become moments of temporary turbulence. Problems that would have seemed overwhelming become puzzles to solve methodically. Remember that the ultimate measure of your success isn't the absence of storms in your life, but your ability to bring peace to the storm.